We are here for our first bargaining session. Today the plan is to share proposals, and as both sides do that, opportunity to ask clarifying questions. I assume once proposals are presented, both sides will want a caucus to be able.
Way to read to mute so we don't hear it. No, I fixed it. It's good. Yeah, awesome, Allison.
Hey, Allison. The other thing is Ryan Noss is not able to join us. He's ill today. He does send his apologies, but we did not want to reschedule. We do want to keep going. So we will definitely keep him up to date as we progress through this. I'm going to go ahead and share our proposal first. I'm going to ask that you please not jump through the pages, and please let's just walk through it so we can explain. And the other thing is, in addition to our proposal, we have some areas that we have some interest in some discussion about that we don't have specific language, but we'd like to get your thoughts on. And then we may, depending on how the conversation goes. So I will walk through that as well. Since we went through a full review last time, we do not have as many pages as I know you do. So I do not want anyone to be offended by that either. We just feel like we did a lot of work last time as well. So, okay.
You have enough for both teams, right?
Should be enough for everyone.
So you know my rule, Jennifer, it's not 50 pages, you gotta go back and bring more, right?
I don't think that's necessarily a good rule.
You might be right.
I'm not teaching. Right in the middle.
All right, so last time we met, we did actually sign off on ground rules. That's what we were signing right as we were getting everything ready. And then we also shared interest. And so one of the positives to start with is it sounds like both groups are interested in doing multi-year. And so I went ahead and just started with, we are interested in a 3-year, if at all possible. But then at top, that would put us in 2027, which is kind of exciting to know it's out there. The next is some new language. So through our document, you will see highlights that are changes, and if it's a strikeout, that is current language that we're either proposing to take out, or you'll see in other places we have an MOU, and so there's been some agreement with that. The first being flex time. We have, as a district, operated in an informal manner with what flex time is. And as we continue to see administrators and staff change, we felt like there should just be some language to make sure everyone understood and there wasn't just assumptions around what flex means. And so that's the purpose of this particular language here. Flex time is working different hours than the employee's regularly assigned schedule. It is not a guarantee and shall be pre-approved in writing by the authorized supervisor. Flex time should not impact time directly working with students. Any flex time must be flexed, meaning made up within the same work week. And work week is defined as Sunday to Saturday. If not approved in advance, other leave will be used. The reason we note some of this, we actually have our work week defined, so we're pulling that just to be really clear for individuals. We're hearing lots of different stories of how individuals are trying to use flex time. So again, we wanted to be clear and make sure if it was helpful, we had a reference to it here in our document.
So quick question, Is this for people that work more than 40 hours? Is that what we're talking about, flexing off that time?
Flexing can potentially be for any hours within the same week. So the example I like to use is someone at the end of the school day, maybe they work till 3:30, but students are out at 2:30 and need to go to a doctor's appointment. They may see if they can use flex time for that hour rather than going ahead and using sick time for that type of thing.
So in that scenario, what would happen to that extra hour they work, assuming they got it pre-approved? Would they just be paid?
Okay, let's just play out scenario. It's on Thursday, they ask because they know it's a doctor's appointment, they ask the week prior, get it approved in writing. then what the approval process, and we can create some forms if needed around this, but the idea is they would identify Monday, I'm gonna work an extra half hour, and Tuesday, and these are the things I would like to help do. Maybe it's helping in a classroom or something. So again, it's working with the administrator on when it would be done and what would be done during that time.
And people, let's say I'm a 30-hour employee, or a 30-hour week employee, I can still flex, is what you're saying?
Potentially,
Okay.
right? I mean, the idea is you're not doing it during the time you're with students.
Right.
And also the other piece is we wouldn't be looking at someone trying to do it for a full day of sick, right? I mean, that's not the intent. It's for those little pieces of time that you might have that flexibility. And it won't work in every situation, but we wanted to, again, put some clarity around it.
Take it.
The next is Article 10, moving down to the piece that I struck out. And this is actually just because it's not applicable. Because when we had agreed the last time, we put that language, so just removing it from the new contract. The next, also the same, on page 2, the top, yeah, that was based on when we had come to the agreement. It doesn't change, again, the overall intent of the education attainment incentive. New language in this article is 10.17, bus riders. We are proposing to incentivize individuals to go ahead when needed to be able to ride the bus before and after school. And typically this may be based on a student's IEP, 504, something along those lines. So an employee who's asked to ride the school bus with students before or after school will be paid an overtime rate for the bus ride duration, even if the employee has not worked 40 hours during the work week. This does not include field trips. The first 3 weeks of school is excluded, except for staff assigned to support transportation written into student IEPs, 504s, or health plans. And I can keep going, but I also want to just give a pause in case there's any questions around that.
Can I ask a question? Those first couple weeks of school, where we are getting staff on the buses, and it's very hard to incentivize them for that as well. What would be the thinking to exclude that if the idea behind it is incentivizing when that is a time period needed?
So 2 reasons. One, the intent behind this is typically we are looking at student schedules and what's needed, and we don't always know that in the first couple of weeks. We're still evaluating that. The other piece of the part you're talking about, those first, is usually just to review behavior expectations is the intent there. This is kind of an ongoing, which is why we're proposing it that way.
Okay.
Next, new language, 10.18 severance benefit. The district will offer a severance benefit to any classified staff member who has completed a minimum of 20 years of service in the Corvallis School District and resigns or retires in employment with the district. Eligible classified staff members shall receive lump sum payment equivalent to 12 months district-provided insurance benefits at the equivalence of their current work year FTE hours. I'd like to add additional piece. We didn't put language in this, but typically when we come to an agreement on a contract, because ours goes through June 30th, 2024, so new contract would be effective July 1. I know we have a few people who have been in the district a long time who've already submitted their retirement at the end of the school year. We are willing to offer that if we can't come to an agreement and sign off before June 30th, we would extend this language only to those who have already submitted for this year. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I do actually. You said for those who've already submitted. So that if they submit by June 30th, already submitted as of today.
No, I mean, the idea is, we know some people are holding. We know some people have already submitted because they probably just like, there was either no idea or whatever. And it just feels like maybe a disservice. And that wasn't the intent behind this, but I also recognize when a contract goes in place, it's July 1. So we want to try and say, hey, if we can, which we're very hopeful we can by June 30th, which means everyone has signed off, that we could offer that to that group.
I had a question, where it says 12 months district provided insurance benefits, is that I don't know, was it 12, whatever the amount is that you put in every month towards our,
Yeah, times 12.
times 12, and then based on.
And then that would be a stipend paid out. And so the idea, for example, if someone was to retire the end of June, we would pay that out in July because we need to process everything and then pay it out the next month.
And your meaning in this is to have it extended if you did a 3-year contract for the 3 years?
Say that again.
This would go into the contract and be extended for the next 3 years? This
It would
offer?
be in there until we agreed to something else.
Okay.
Yeah. So we weren't putting a time frame on this. The only caveat was, again, recognizing what's happening right now.
If we wanted to.
Okay, next. Article 14, leaves for personal leave. So one of the things we said in our interest was to try and align with our other employment groups. We have some similar language, both for the severance benefit, but also for personal leave, is how personal leave is earned. So that's one of the reasons behind this. And so personal leave shall be earned according to the following schedule, but granted at the beginning of each school year based on contract days expected to work. The idea is we have many different work calendars for our classified, ranging from 179 to 260. And so what we wanted to do is put a percentage. If you work this many days in this calendar year, you would get 1 day. For example, sometimes people aren't hired until late spring. And so it was just to be really clear, so if someone wondered how much they would get, this would be able to, we'd be able to point to this. Okay. Any questions about that? Next page. 14.2.6, if an employee leaves the district after using such leave without earning it, the district shall be reimbursed at the amount of salary paid for any such leave time taken but not earned. Such reimbursement shall occur through withholding from the staff member's final paycheck. Again, this goes back to that first piece of that. So if someone, we grant all 3 days because they start the beginning of the school year, but they don't finish the school year, they wouldn't have earned all 3 days. So it would just be going ahead and making that deduction for the amount that was earned.
Sorry, back on page 2, there's a strikeout under the percentage calculations. Is that new or?
Oh, yes, sorry, I didn't highlight that. Thank you for pointing that out. That's the current language below, and so we'd be replacing it with the love highlight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Uh, 14.7, added language, and I apologize, I realized I did not highlight that PLO. So we actually have an MOU in regards to paid leave Oregon. If someone is to use it and they want to make up the difference, they can use their sick leave. So that's what that language is as well. No, you looked at this 100 times and think you have it all right. You miss a highlight. The next one, 14.7.5, this is to align with our policy around leave and just clarifying that we can ask for medical certification if it's 5 days or more. Okay, Article 19, we have an MOU, and this is based on some new legislation that took place earlier this year around probationary period and just cause. So you will see on the next page, language that's being struck, and then the new language that we have again in the MOU. And then the same goes for Article 20. Okay, so if you go to your last page, so based on compensation, I took the current language, made an update to strike out the 22-23. For the 24-25 school year, we are proposing an increase of 5% COLA. With insurance, again, updating dates accordingly. Looking at the amount of 1,315 being the monthly contributions. And down below, you will see how we've broken out the 3 years. So as mentioned, year 1, COLA 5%, insurance $1,315 a month, and then a $600 bonus if an employee works the full year and has a leave balance equivalent to 1 day at the end of the school year. And that would be sick or personal only would count within that balance.
What do you mean by that? That they have only one day or at least one day?
At least one day. We are continuing to see many, many employees go into unpaid leave on a regular basis. We're trying to find a way to incentivize individuals to not necessarily take off because it's a little bit harder to get up that morning, or, I mean, I know there's lots of different reasons. This isn't saying if you're really sick, we definitely don't want you coming in, but we're just seeing so much of it, and through conversations, we thought maybe an incentive of encouraging you to come might be helpful. Not necessarily the way we want to go about doing it, but trying to come up with a way that might be helpful.
And we have identified that as an issue too, so you'll see some from us on that as well. Thank you.
So then with year two, so 25, 26, a 4% COLA, increasing insurance by 50, so it'd be 1,365, or the $600 bonus. The thought behind that is trying to determine what's more important, and we want to be flexible. If you think the insurance increases more, because they know you all have been able to increase or add based on your reserves quite a bit to the insurance, so I don't know if it's more important for like the $600 bonus or to increase insurance. So kind of putting that out as an option. And then year three, because again, we don't know that far out in the future with the financials, but we would like to do a reopener only on that piece for year three, or that's what we're proposing, I should say.
Question, is there anything you want to say on Article 20 around you went from, I think, 19 to.
19 and 20, we both have MOUs we signed this year.
Okay, that's
based on
what
the
I did
legislation. So I just put that language in there.
Okay.
If there's no questions on that, I'd like to bring a couple other topics we would like to just like put out there with no specific language, but areas we have some interest and discussion, if that's okay.
I think we're good.
Oh, okay.
We understand your proposal.
Okay.
I think we do want to caucus, and if we could have for just a couple minutes. Oh, I
wasn't
think we're
done.
done. Sorry, go ahead.
You missed
I'm
the last
not
one.
done, Hobie.
I misheard, my bad.
No,
Let's
so I
move on.
mentioned we have a couple topics we
Oh,
have interest
topics,
without
right.
language, right? And I wanted to just put those out there.
Gotcha.
And we can decide, like, if we want to come back and discuss them, you can put that in your box, whatever you'd like to do, but I just want to put these out there. So things that we have come across is 10 checks versus 12 checks. We recognize a lot of newer staff coming in. That can be difficult to understand how you're sort of putting money and then paying out in the summer when I don't work in the summer. So, because they're looking at actuals, what I'm going to get for that month. So we are open, but it needs to be one way or the other. Of course, 260 will always be the 12 checks because they work all year. But I'm guessing some of you may also get questions or hear about that. So again, open for that. The other, and this kind of goes to a little bit of what we talked about with our proposal, is to incentivize individuals to come to work. Part of that comes with we're with kids, which is such a short amount of time. And so that's why we put the bonus as an option. If that's not a way, can we talk about other ways that may work? But again, we're open to discussion around that. So I'll be curious to see if you have, sounds like some stuff in yours. And maybe it's even part of the discussion as we several years ago decided to front load sick leave. And I'm not sure if that is added to a bit of the concern or issue, because then individuals use it all up and we're in February and I'm having conversations that you have no leave yet and we still got several months and that's hard. So it could be kind of revisiting that piece of the conversation too. The next is reviewing job classifications, but putting a plan together and doing that over a period of time. I would throw out the number, maybe you put a plan together for 4 years, and I say 4 only because we have lots of job classifications, and identifying a couple per year and putting a group together to actually work on that have that, then you go to the next one. So if you've got kind of a concrete plan to work with, it actually, I think, helps move things along. The other piece is last time, I think it was last time, Marcy, I have to correct me, is we did that whole chart in the back, the family member bereavement leave, and I know you guys were all over that.
I think that was 6 years ago, but
Was
yes.
it 6? Okay. There has been a ton of changes in the law around OFLA, paid leave Oregon, how it's being defined. There's more coming in July. I know the idea was it's a reference for people, but with those changes, I think it can be confusing. The bereavement's different because there's two different things. We allot some paid time for bereavement, so that's real easy. But the sick leave, I'm wondering if we take that section out so it doesn't become confusing for people. If it's easier to leave it in, totally fine with it, but again, I'm recognizing what changes are coming, which changes all of it anyway.
Would you be able to get us the information of what changes you think, or you think or know are coming, and where you think the conflict would be with what's in the contract, so that we could have a better idea how we feel?
I don't want to commit to all of that work. I can send you the law and let you go through it because it's pretty gnarly. And again, if it's something like, no, it's just easier just to reference the law, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. I think there's more important things for us to talk about, but I'm just putting it out here knowing what's coming.
And we should have some things, my hope is soon from the last session that we can share with our members in general too. So maybe that'd be helpful.
So that's what I have.
So Jennifer, we'd like to have a short caucus, and we actually want to talk to you in a sidebar, if that's okay. Can we maybe have 5 minutes and then come find you and whoever's gonna be with you since Ryan's out here? And can we go up for March?
Are we officially going to have?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going on record.
I'm making the.
I don't mind watching.
Okay.
If I bump into something. That would be the first time.
Thank you.
I'm looking ahead.
Yeah, I was looking ahead. Get pretty goosey, get pretty gander.
Thank you.
So I'll sit on the front, they put sort of an explanation, so you can, this is the one with the dark green.
That's not that, it's just hard to read.
Anyways,
On the computer, it looks like. Granted, this last time.
pretty straightforward, is that okay?
More of a ledger page, you can understand what we're doing.
And Article 1.
Nancy reads.
Yes, it's me.
Okay.
Article 1, we are proposing that under 1.2.2, we strike the word invited and replace it with present. 1.6, we are proposing that we delete that section. And then we are adding a new section to, is that 1.7? Personal freedom, the personal life of a staff member is not an appropriate concern of the district, except where it can be proven it affects the staff member's fitness for or performance of their contractual duties.
And are we okay if we ask questions along the way versus wait? Okay. So 1.6, can you share a little bit your thoughts behind why taking out limited term?
I guess I'm not. Because it puts a third category. You have your temporaries, you have your limited term, and then you have your regular employees. And we like to see most of these people either, work appropriately as temporaries or be regular members, not have essentially a 1-year contract or a 9-month contract, whatever it is. So we're looking to shift that so that it's, you're either a temporary worker per the contract or you're a regular worker earning towards everything, seniority, all that stuff, good stuff. So that's the idea behind that.
Okay, thank you. What about the times when we get grants for 1 year? Because the temporary it's a much shorter time frame. So I think, limited term, I think was in prior to me coming, so I'm guessing it was a lot around that. And we still see grants come time to time and don't last very long.
So how we've handled it in other areas is if they're hired on regular employee and they're grant funded, sometimes those are a year or sometimes they're 2 years, depends on, or whatever. When that grant ends, those employees will be allowed to use their seniority to either follow the bumping article, and if there's no bumping positions for them, they could take an open position, or they would go to the street as a layoff with the contractual recall rights. That's essentially how we've handled in other areas.
And then under personal freedom, and I understand where that's coming from, I'm curious though, when you all discussed and put in the language, what types of things, when you talk about performance of their contractual duties, because I can imagine there's different thoughts on what that looks like.
Go ahead.
So we did, as you probably are guessing, because it's very much word for word what's in the teacher's contract, that's where the inspiration came from. And while others can there's been times where employees have raised concerns when they've been contacted about something they maybe put on Facebook that doesn't affect their work, or things like that. And the line is being a line that we have our personal lives and our work lives. And if our personal lives are not actually impacting the performance of our duties or, in some way, then they are separate and should be treated as separate. Just that respect, that line.
I completely understand that, and this is where it is that line is very gray, because there are times when someone thinks they're doing it as a personal individual, and it does cross over, and the person may not think, but it actually has an impact in the work environment.
And that's why we've said we use the word proven. It's a first step, and we'd be interested in responsive language, but it is what you guys, or what was agreed to as the districts with the teachers, so we're thinking that it was pretty clear language with an understanding, but definitely open to having a response back.
I wonder if it's a language we come to in the end, if there's some education around it because of that gray line. And actually, again, I think we've seen more and more, social media is a big.
That's the easiest one to
Yes.
use as an example, but there are other things as well.
Yes, but I would want to have individuals understand that even though you think you're doing it as a private individual, there are many a times it does, and it's ugly, right? I mean, unfortunately, so just for people to kind of understand, pausing sometimes before you do things.
Because that could be part of an
it's not-
education or something that's done,
Yeah.
or there's something developed for safe schools or something else that talks about those gray areas or
Yeah.
something, but definitely a conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Because I guess my question would be, how do you have the teacher's contract, how do you deal with them?
Oh, it's ugly to deal with. I mean, it's just.
Never mind.
It's tough, and I think, again, the language is old language.
Mhm.
Prior to social media just created it to be so much more
Mm.
difficult because of people use those things for a variety of ways.
Gotcha. Right, thank you.
Ready to go on?
Article 2, district rights.
Okay. Article 2, district rights. We are proposing to strike the word or other and just have budgetary reasons. And then under 2.2F, just a formatting to workforce, to format it that way instead of two separate words. That's it.
Article 3,
Well, I think it's pretty clear what we're doing here. Maybe I need to explain it, but we just don't want contracting to be in the life of the agreement. If we're gonna do some contracting, we want to have those discussions when the agreement's open, so we can figure out how that's gonna work at that time, when everything else is open. That's essentially it.
I get that, and there's lots of laws around how and what you have to do
There
anyway
is.
to do that, so, okay.
Article 4.
I'm opening it up.
Just making sure. I just can't hear everyone currently today.
Okay, in 4.1 for association dues, we are striking the section on the form provided just to match policy with practice. We're also striking the word central and replacing it with state, as the state office is the colloquial term we use and the correct term we use for head office. In 4.2, association membership, we are striking the first sentence. Moving on to 4.3, we are adding the word services to represent the new subsection we are adding under 4.3 to include it. And the new subsection under 4.3 is titled Translation and Interpretation Access. The association shall have the right to access and use district translation and interpretation services for the purposes of communication related to collective bargaining, grievance, or other dispute investigations and/or governance of the union. Services will be accessed following established district procedures. In In 4.4, we are striking the requirement for the association chapter president's signature to be required on every piece that's on the bulletin board and replacing it with the verbiage, the association shall have the right to post notices of activities and matters of association concern on classified staff bulletin boards. All such posted materials shall be clearly identified as originating from the association. For 4.5, we are striking the word may, replacing it with shall, and striking the word brief in front of announcements. Moving on to 4.7, we are adding a new subsection under 4.7.3, or with the language, new employees shall attend their union meeting as outlined above before they can start their job. Moving on to section 4.8, In 4.8.3, we are striking the word nighttime, and adding an association chapter meeting. So that sentence should read, any employee wishing to attend an association chapter meeting shall be allowed to attend, and then the rest of the section is the same, and then in 4.8.8, the green highlight represents just grammatical changes. So it was just fixing the sentence case and bolding it, since that wasn't represented in the current contract. There are no changes in 4.9, so we can move along that. And then we don't have any additions to 4.10. We do have a new section at the end of Article 4 titled Meetings. And then the first subsection is Welcome Back Rally and Training Day. During the annual Welcome Back Rally and Training Day, the district shall allocate 1 hour of paid time for the association to address all classified staff. This meeting time must not conflict with other classified activities, and the district shall provide a space large enough to accommodate all classified staff. The next subsection is titled Chapter Meetings. All OSEA members shall be allowed to attend chapter meetings scheduled by the association without loss of pay. If this meeting conflicts with an employee's regular work hours, the employee will notify their supervisor in advance and will arrange to make up this time. And finally, another subsection titled Staff Meetings. The association shall have the right to a scheduled item on the agenda for school-specific staff meetings. This portion of the agenda shall be exclusively for bargaining unit members. And then finally, we have a new section titled Miscellaneous, with just one sentence. All work performed by the bargaining unit shall remain with the bargaining unit.
Can you explain some rationale behind all of these additions?
You want to start at the very beginning?
At the front.
Are you talking about the new sections, like the meeting
Article
section?
4, there's a lot of new and additional language that, when I think about the work time of staff, I see a lot of time taken away from that. And so I'm just trying to understand the thought behind it.
Well, I think most of the stuff in here would not take time away necessarily. You guys do a welcome back, for instance, but I think we're just trying to clarify how that process will work. So, like most schools and like the teachers, we have that time to communicate at the beginning of the year with all of our folks, just like the district does. So I don't really think you're taking any time away there. We're just saying it just can't conflict, because how can we get everybody in the same spot, really, right? Some of the other changes with the meetings, we're making up that time. We're not saying that, like mostly this applies in most cases to people who work afternoons or evenings, right? Usually your janitorial staff, they would essentially maybe flex the time, but however we would decide they'd work out with their supervisors, so the district would still get the work from them. It just would be, they might have a half hour to attend a meeting that's during their normal work time, and maybe they work half hour later, or whatever they work out with their supervisor, right? So I guess if you can point out some areas where you think that it's taking time, I can better answer that question.
We only have like 3 to 4 chapter meetings a year anyway, but it's
They're
required.
usually once a quarter.
Yeah, once a quarter.
And maybe Jennifer, just to add, many of these things, except for the back to school date, are kind of happening, but they're not happening consistently at every building. And what we're looking at is that employees have consistency no matter what building they're at. Kobe's right that the meetings usually only impact people who have like the swing shift, but they would make it up. But the other pieces are about the new employee orientations, where already you guys are doing the new employee orientations before a person starts as a practice now, except for very limited, pieces, getting them fully processed. So we're just saying that we want to have a chance that the union part there. We're trying to tie into some of things and just be very consistent while understanding. Mary, does that sound about right?
Yeah, it's pretty much some of the things we're already doing, but I figure some of us will not always be here. So maybe it needs to be in writing so that people know that it's happening. And the staff meeting stuff, all the ones I've been to, the CEA has always met at the end of the meeting, but in our thing, it also does say that we should be able to meet as well. It just lets administrators know that it is okay. So that the column say, is it okay if they, it's pretty much clarifying a lot of what we already do.
The way it's coming across though is it's very much sounds like it's potentially impacting the work time. And so that's why I wanted to understand that
Yeah,
piece.
I don't think it does.
So I appreciate that. The other thing that I'm real curious about is it's on page, let's see if I'm page 8. New employees shall attend their union meeting before they can start their job. They're not employees yet. So I mean, I want to be really clear about that.
So you don't pay for orientation?
We pay for orientation.
And that's usually where we do the meetings, right? We just don't want to chase people all year long, because the law says 30 days, right? And somebody's
Yeah.
gonna bring that up.
And I guess I would say, and we're following the law. We're giving you the time you need. Beyond that, I mean, it already feels like we're taking some things potentially away when we're having to put more for sort of union time versus what we need from the district time for that. So we're meeting the law. And that's why it feels like there's a little bit more here being asked. And that's why I wanted to understand. So I appreciate the explanation and maybe there's just some different thought that we can come back with.
We just don't want to chase people, because there's one-off hires, then we have to chase them all over the district to try to hit, because that potentially could disrupt their day more than trying to do it right when they're signing their papers, That's the intent there.
Article, are we ready for 5? Article 5, the classification. Tim?
So this kind of builds on reviewing the job descriptions, but adding in the ability to request the creation of a new position based on new duties that have already been integrated into the job duties. That now for that, we're not part of the current job description. Make that request. And then in 5.2, we struck non-binding. Then 5.3 and 5.4, there's some editing comments I made as far as restructuring these sections, just so that this chapter reads a little bit more smoothly. And then as far as 5.4 for step placement, back in 5.2.1, we indicate there might be a recommendation to look within industry or profession. And then based on the job descriptions we currently have in our contracts, maybe the committee can make recommendations toward additional steps to reflect what that review may have found for current rates for the trade or the profession. And then in 5.1, we're adding another subsection just to include that recommend the creation of a new position. And that's kind of also reflected in 5.5.2 as well.
Can I ask a clarification on 5.4? When you reference additional steps may be awarded, is that based on, let's just say the person's on step 1 and based on whatever agreed to, the suggestion is to move them to step 3, or are you asking for more steps on the salary schedule?
More steps on the salary schedule based on a review of the industry or the trade, based on the pay rates that may be reflected in other organizations.
Thank you.
Ready for Article 6? Some edits in 6.2, changing lunch to meal as the terminology for that period. In 6.21, more of those similar edits, and then striking the words "the tour of duty" and exchanging that for "their day." And then striking break and editing that to be rest and meal periods instead of breaks and lunch times. 6.2.2, striking the language there and then replacing it with "if a directive from a district designated supervisor or an emergent circumstance causes an employee to work during their unpaid lunch break, the employee will be paid for the entire lunch break. The employee will document this event by submitting a full lunch break time as extra time with notes on their district time card." In 6.3, rest periods. Again, striking break and converting it to rest period. Edits for 4 hours of consecutive service as opposed to period. With the break stricken and rest period, as close as possible to the middle of the 4 hours. Such rest periods will be assigned by the employee's immediate supervisor. 6.3.2, rest and meal periods are not to be saved or combined in any manner which would allow the employee to work, etc. We are proposing a strike of 6.4.3. Then in 6.4.4, adding, 6.4.4 should read, all overtime shall be paid except the employee may take compensatory time of 1.5 hours in lieu of being paid at the mutual agreement of the employee and the district. In 6.4.6, we are adding at the very end of that line, in reverse seniority order. 6.5 is a change to that title, just to call back, and then a striking of the language there, and then 3 new subsections covering general callback, holiday callback, and emergency callback. Would you like me to read all of those subsections?
No, but can you give us a moment just to look at it, if you have questions? Thank you. I have a question. I'm just curious, what the thought was behind just breaking it out into 3 different things.
I think generally it was because there's concern with, different elements, like if we're dealing with a, freezing event or a snow event, that presents a different, element than being called back because there's an alarm that needs to be dealt with or something, right? So I think that's the idea, is just to separate those out, to add more weight to certain categories than the other. Do I have that essentially right, James?
You do.
Oh, Jim, sorry. But you were just kind of thinking ahead.
The ice storm is a good example of that.
Okay, and I'm going to assume, but it's not as good to assume, part of that's due to the weather, right, and driving and just some adjustment. All right, okay,
Right.
just, thank you.
Want to continue?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I'm just Jennifer's making notes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on. 6.8 is the next, where we have a new suggested subsection. 6.8.1, the district shall notify staff who provide direct services to students when such plans are newly implemented, updated, or terminated during the school year. This notification shall happen within 1 business day of the plan adjustment being formalized. And this is in association to IEP and 504 plan. A new subsection for 6.9, uninterrupted time. For employees not assigned a one-to-one district computer and workstation, adequate dedicated time will be identified in their daily schedule to allow for administrative tasks relevant to their position to be completed. These tasks include, but are not limited to, checking email, reviewing planning small group lessons, and completing required reports. We have another section, 6.10, workplace location changes. If a staff member is directed by district administration to change their dedicated work location, i.e. moving rooms or changing buildings, the staff member will be provided with 4 hours of paid time to transition their workspace. And finally, 6.11, workday calendars. Workday calendars for staff working 186 days or less will be adapted to include one planning prep day free from district and staff meetings before the first day of school, as well as an additional day after the last day of school for these staff to close or wrap up the school year.
So 6.10 and 6.11, can you share with me a little bit more of thoughts behind some of that?
6.10 I can is, I get calls from administrators as well asking me because teachers get paid to be able to move there when we do move spaces, some of us, and we do move buildings. And just to be in there and be ready, since a lot of them don't have extra days, just to be able to get in there and be ready to be, for when the students are there. So sometimes there's a lot of stuff and it's a hard thing for some people as well.
So for some, and some don't necessarily have quite the same type of space, so I'm curious, was there discussion about that piece?
I think that too would be something based on their, I mean, we're not just gonna say, like I can use myself, like when I moved, there's usually stuff, that comes with, and then your workstation and all that, and getting yourself set up. And there may be some that just don't really work out of anything, or probably be looking at that, and you can be a little more specific into as to what the employee does, but I think, use common sense instead, if they really do need time to do it.
And then how about 6.11?
I think this one is, people just want to be really ready to go when they come back at the same time the students do. With how they explained to me, they're feeling really out of sorts and trying to catch up and figure out where the teachers usually had time to get things prepared and be ready. They haven't even had a chance to discuss with the teachers usually if they don't come back early enough.
And that's part of it, Hobie, but this last year, the calendar, you guys did give more of that, and I want to acknowledge that. A large part of this one is at the end. I can speak for classified at the elementary. School gets out at 12:30 and their shift ends shortly after. And they have to pack everything up, do their checkout sheets, everything, and it's just this whirlwind, like kids gone, I'm gone. There's no opportunity to close out your work, to put things, they don't have that opportunity. And so giving them some of that same respect, giving them an opportunity, whether it's a full day, a half day, so many hours, something that they can work to close up the year.
No, I get that. I guess I'd be curious when I look at, because when we create the work calendars, using next year as an example, the last Teacher's Day is coming back on a Monday.
For the following year?
If I was to bet money, most of those individuals are not wanting to come back on a Monday, right? And so I'm just curious, did you do a survey to get a sense from individuals, would they?
I think it could go a lot of ways, and Mary could lay in on that too. And, again, negotiating, it could be, maybe it's an extra hour that day to do more things to close up, or something, because staff are rushed. There's usually, and again, I'm speaking elementary, there's usually some type of lunch or meeting where they're talking about, the kids leave at 12:30, then you do this thing as a group, and you've got very little time, and they're all piling on you to check a little more time to do this.
I'm just curious, because there's a lot of nuances sometimes we don't account for, and then we have other issues that come from it, so.
So just to open the conversation at that end of year, allowing people to have that close.
And you might come up with a solution that deals with 6.10 and 11 both.
Right.
Can I ask a question now? So is the thinking with the planning prep day, especially around the planning, does that include in partnership with certified and administration planning for the new year, or it's independent of any of that?
I would say guided by the principal, even the teachers planning it to a large degree.
Yeah.
Parts of it are guided by the principal as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Mary, would you agree with that? Absolutely.
Thank you.
Seven, seniority or layoffs. So I better read it, and Mary's your question person. Okay, so under 7.1.4, we are wanting to strike the notice, so if the district determines the need for layoff, notice of not less than, it was 21 days, and we'd like to have not less than 45 days be provided, calendar days. And then under 7.4, we would like to strike the last sentence. strike the part that says if a regular employee takes a limited term assignment, their regular status and seniority accrual continues. But I want to note that we are only proposing to strike that in conjunction with the removing the limited term employee, if they're packaged.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, that needs to stay. Moving forward, under 7.6.2 B, we were proposing to strike B entirely. This came up last year, so striking B entirely. And then C, as part of striking B entirely, we're proposing to say if no vacancies exist within the primary job title, and by that we mean the job title they have the most FTE in, to amend that section, C.
Can you give me one moment just to read through this, because I'm pretty sure I have a question on this one.
Well, considering how tricky it was for us before, I don't believe it.
So the intent, just to clarify, I'm a EA and an AA. Most of my hours are AA. So if there's not an opening and I don't have seniority, I can't go into the EA role only based on seniority within the family. That my understanding, that because those are two different families now that are involved in that situation.
I think we're very clarified that we want the job title with the most FTE to be considered first if at all possible.
Right.
And
I
only
don't
then
think,
look
yeah, I
at
don't think it says to take out the way we were doing things. It just, the problems we ran into last.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I will.
So I just a way to get that not to be, because that was wrong, and some of it was wrong. If you're 90% been this, and then someone had you do a half hour of outdoor time because they needed to, and then all of a sudden you lose, you're given that job. We're trying to figure a way so it doesn't happen again.
Sure.
To help us all
What
out.
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it and work it through with what it was and what I think I understand you want to
Okay.
see if that's truly the intent. Because I do kind of have to play out the scenario. Sure, and it is complicated, so, okay, thank you.
Well, you know what we're asking for, so if you have a better way of saying it, we're
Yeah.
open to that too.
Okay,
It's just, that was one we knew we kind of had to look at.
So section 8, just to kind of preface this section saying that some of this is formatting, or like, we're kind of re-envisioning this section, this article, if you will, before they basically talked about the personnel file, and we're actually just making that 8.1 and proposing adding some different things. So we're proposing changing the title of the article to Personnel and Human Resources instead of Personnel Records. 8.1, instead of saying entry, would now be personnel file. Can I look at yours, because I can't read the screen? Thank you. So the green there that I can not read very well, and that's my problem. We moved previous sections 8.1.2, 8.1.3 to A and B under 8.1.1. Instead of them being separate sections within the article, they're subsections. So subsection, they haven't changed, they've just been moved formatting wise. And then again, the next green line there is moved previous sections 8.2 and 8.3 to 8.1.2 and 8.1.3. Again, getting all of that up under just the first section, personnel file. And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked a moment. We did change the wording a little bit. 8.2, the wording about removal of material. It's not highlighted yellow there, but that is a proposal to change the wording to where 8.1.2 would say, when a formal reprimand has been placed in the employee's file and the employee has subsequently been employed for 3 years without further formal reprimand, the employee can make a request and the letter will be removed from their file. So we brought that one up before, we're bringing that back. And then, of course, the access piece is there as well. Sorry, this one's a little more complicated. I'm trying to make sure I'm saying the stuff right. So we had some new sections below there. Suggested 8.2 is jobs descriptions, and job descriptions for all current district positions will be available publicly to staff at all times. Understanding that as we're working to update them, but the current ones are supposed to be operating under having them be available, and then the new ones. 8.3 is new hire onboarding. 8.3.1, all newly hired staff shall have a comprehensive orientation with human resource employees. No, this page, I'm sorry. Thank you, that did not make sense. With human resources, including time for OSCA to meet with newly hired staff prior to beginning their job duties, reference Article 4 for the full OSCA process. 8.3.2, all newly hired staff shall have an onboarding meeting with their direct supervisor or their designee prior to beginning their job duties. This meeting will include a full review of the building norms, practices, their daily work schedule, including assigned lunch and break times, and job duties specific to their position. It will also include any safety information staff need in order to positively navigate the position. And again, 8.3.3, all newly hired staff assigned to work in environments with the potential for physical harm from students will receive training in the prevailing district standards for safety and behavior response before working with students. A, exigent circumstances for exceptions must be approved by human resources and the association president on a case-by-case basis. And B, a supervisor is identified as a non-represented / administrator for the site program. And some of this comes around from what you recently spoke with Owens at meetings about, like retaining employees, setting them up for success, and us identifying some of the areas that we'd like to see standardized to do so, or suggestions for it.
The 8.3.3 A and B.
Which one?
8.3.3, so that last section you just did.
Yes.
A and B,
Yes.
can you tell me a little bit more specific on that? Is there a specific reason that's noted or where that's?
We're trying to use common sense that there's going to be times that there's exigent circumstances where somebody might not be able to get all the training beforehand, but we want that to be something that's done on a case-by-case basis, not as a norm. And so that's basically to not have an absolute, like, where it feels like an all or nothing, that there can be exigent circumstances. And then B is identifying the supervisor, and that's just to be really clear that, you know, the ongoing conversation that the supervisor is the administrator. It's not a teacher. Say you're in the life skills program, the life skills teacher is not your supervisor, it's the principal. Identify that.
Just a question of clarification on 8.3.3. When you say training in the prevailing district standard for safety and behavior response, are we talking about CPI training or are
We
we
didn't want
talking
to say
about?
that in case
district
next
behavior
year there's a new flavor, but yes, that kind of concept. Training, if you're going to work with a student who has aggressive or physical, that you have the skills to start that. And frequently right now, we all know that people a lot of times just jump, you know, or having to jump in and they're not getting that. And that also leads to employees, you know, with the resignations, the dissatisfaction, higher number of injury reports happening, you know, we can find a way to get ahead of that to stop some of that from happening and probably have both the district and our classified staff feel more successful.
I can
makes the
appreciate
students
that.
more successful.
For sure. I just wonder about the phrase potential for physical harm and maybe getting a little tighter on language around that with
We'd
students on
love to
behavior
see a
plans.
readdress back with some ideas.
That feels broad to me, so I just want to be clear as an administrator how I'm supporting.
Yeah, we definitely are interested in hearing back any thoughts or adjustments.
Thanks.
Mary, is there any part of that I didn't cover?
Article 9.
All right, so Article 9. Down on 9.2.3, you'll see that we've stricken the word normally in terms of how long a job opening is up. 9.2.4, striking 2 and adding 3 of the best qualified internal candidates for position. Under 9.2.6, adding the language "and again in February," talking about the link to the webpage where our jobs are posted. Here we are suggesting a new subsection. Any classified positions posted during the active school year will automatically be posted as internal only for 3 scheduled workdays, and all qualified applicants shall be interviewed. If no applicants are chosen, the position will be posted publicly. Human Resources will notify all classified staff via email the same day any internal positions are posted. A staff member cannot be moved by the district into a position without the agreement of the employee, the association, and Human Resources. In 9.3, we have a grammatical change there. And then in 9.3.2, striking the language in the front there and saying, instead, upon receiving a promotion in the different job family, an employee will be placed on the appropriate range of the position and on their current step.
So of course I have questions. The new subsection, so page 26, the bottom of that page, your new subsections, those 3 sections, I'd like to hear the rationale behind all of that.
We're just interested in giving all of our classified employees a chance at different places they may want to work, or new opportunities for them. A lot of the times we find that some positions are only open for a little while, really fast, and we want it to be more fair in allowing employees who already work here to try and branch out and get promoted and grow. Yeah.
So, and then above that, you added an additional time we need to send out the email. And I know we had discussion about this before, like, right, I know people don't read a lot of my emails. I mean, I know for a fact. So now I'm sending out more emails that aren't going to be read, clog up emails when it's easily accessible on our website. So I'm curious why we're doing the work, trying to do this when, if we send it out one time, okay, people know. And the other thing, and I think I've shared this before, I don't have a problem interviewing people, but when I interview individuals over and over and over and they're not, that doesn't feel very good either. And no one has taken us up on our offer to sit down and get feedback and talk through, which we have in the contract and have put that out there. And I know we discussed that a bit last time. So there's that component as well.
Well, that may be the education issue. We may not have done the best job of getting out that they have that right. And unfortunately, like your emails, never to read the contract word for word either. So, and I would say that putting it out in February, I mean, many districts do this for each job for each time it comes open. It's not even a monthly thing. Job is open, it goes out. So I know you guys have some issues with your setup here, as you explained last time, but having it out there, they don't read the emails, but we give them the best leg up we can to find this information. I mean, there's only so much we can do, right, on either side. So a couple times a year doesn't feel, like it's gonna cause a serious backlog for your emails. I mean, I can't force them to read email any more than, well, you can probably force them, but I cannot force them to read
No,
email.
they don't, I mean.
I'm just saying, we do what we can with that, but, twice a year feels fairly reasonable, mainly because you get all those holidays and breaks and stuff, and people kind of aren't thinking of that, and they come back. And just giving you a quick reminder that, hey, remember to look here, so that they, for last part of the year, second half of the year, they have a way to get jogged in memory if they're reading the emails. So I think that's the idea with that. Like James said, we want people that are here to have the ability to grow with the district, like Marcy said, and, spread their wings and maybe move in a few different directions before we go to the outside and bring a brand new person in that has no loyalty to this district or anything like that. So hopefully that answers the questions. I don't know.
And Jennifer, just to say, if earlier in the contract, we put down there that we would love to see some time given to the association of the back to school day, we have the same problem with people not reading emails. And so if we were able to get that to be a thing, we could basically do a Cliff Notes version where we have them live and have to say a lot of these things that need to be said, the nuts and bolts, to put together, which could include where to look, what to find, what their responsibilities are.
What about the piece of interviewing the same person over and over and over?
I'm not gonna do that one.
Well, they would have to be qualified to, according to this language, to apply, right? So if they're qualified, and I guess they want to interview, I mean, I guess they interview, right? I mean, there's nothing stopping you from saying, if you're interested, the contract allows us to offer you why you're doing over and over, not getting picked, right? You guys
Hey,
could be
Rick, that's
proactive.
wasting a lot of people's time. I mean, I guess that's my concern about it. I don't have a problem if there's the potential, but there are some, unfortunately, that we're not going to offer the next position because we need to do some work over here, right? But they apply to every single position we have.
Well, and since they could have gotten more skills since the last time you interviewed them, maybe they haven't, but they could have. I don't know a way around that. Unfortunately, no system is ever perfect. I guarantee you, any system you put in place, there will be a flaw. We're just trying to have, a fairness, kind of fundamental fairness kind of piece here where you have the ability to choose to use it. If the same people keep interviewing with you and don't make any of the corrections, I don't think it'd be out of line for the district to say, do you want us to talk about, this piece? If they say no, then I guess they say no, but that's already offered in the contracts, right? They already have, so making them aware of it might be a next step. If it continues after that, it doesn't matter what system we have, it's gonna have a flaw somewhere. It's not gonna be perfect. If I do the golden words to write down to make it work the way it's supposed to, we're intending to do that, but unless you guys have better words, I don't know.
No, I appreciate hearing that. I mean, at bottom, I think Amir growth is, we want to give people opportunities. Maybe there's some different ways we can go about it.
Yeah.
So.
Article 10.
Article 10, all right. So obviously we changed some dates, based on, some hopeful dates. And we struck some language, talked about old salary rates and whatnot. Down below, you'll see what we're asking for over the next 3 years. And then below that, we struck more language that, is no longer relevant here. We did add the regular staff, regular salary schedule steps. So we kept 15 with the longevity step, and we removed the other language there because we want to go beyond that. And down below here, the newly hired, you can read what that says there. I guess if you have questions, it's pretty straightforward on the next two. We did add a piece of the language on the second one of that too, trying to get some standards around how translators will work. Down below under 10.1.6, we had the words upon verification. And then we changed the scale a little bit. The next page you'll see we struck through the step 3 there. Just kind of trying to put together some kind of scale that would make sense. Maybe get us to retain some more people here. Down below that, let's see here. I think limited term language we removed in 10.2, and then the last piece, that's obviously old language under 10.2.3. That's why it's struck. Let's see here. So 10.3.1, we struck the existing language and added this because we wanted to make sure that the district is asking them during the onboarding. So we're catching it up front. So we make them aware of it and then hopefully let us know at that point. And then we also changed the language in the next section. I'm missing a page. 2.2, which page am I missing?
After 29 comes 30.
I don't have 30.
This one. It's on the back of this.
No, to the back of that one. My bad. Okay. So. She's the one who can't see. So anyway, down below here, we left the language the same and the amounts for the different positions. We did add 10.3.3 And this is, I think, this is very similar to what I think you guys are offering. We had some other pieces down below that are a bit different. So take a look at that. Let me know if you have any questions. Working on classification.
Wait, Toby, can you
Yes.
please? So this is actually a significant change.
It is.
Mhm.
So can you talk through it? Because the way I'm reading it is instead, we did a one-time stipend, that was our agreement last time, and it looks like now we're moving to every 2 years. Am I reading that correctly?
That is correct. I misread that, my bad. So yeah, it would change it to every 2 years. Now, I guess I'll have one of the team speak to, because I'm unclear on this piece, is that, if they get new degrees, or is that if they get paid for the same existing degree?
So I'll speak to this.
Thank
This
you.
is, this is my addition. So we recognize that retaining quality staff, especially highly educated staff, is both a union and district priority. So to recognize the education levels of our staff, we want to propose every 2 years, a payment for the highest degree the individual has earned.
So it would be able to utilize it. Thank you for that clarification.
So it is, that's why I just needed to clarify. You went over it pretty quick, so I wanted to make sure I saw that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Please feel free to stop and ask a question. Working out a classification, we added a few things in here. From the higher pay classification to who is in, struck it and changed it to from the higher pay classification. And down below that, who's assigned to assume. Now, all is not usually how that works. It's usually most of the duties. So we wanted to make that reflect clear what we actually do. And then down below, we wanted to kind of ratchet this back from 5 days, which feels like a lot. Usually we understand emergencies come up and you might need a day to figure something out. But 5 days felt like it was quite a bit of time to do that, to figure out that emergency. Other people that are scheduled off for that time, you would have known in advance and be able to address it that way. So the working out classification down below, more than 3 months, just will notify the association. The thinking being is that we're really probably talking about something that needs to change there. Either there needs to be a position, this person moved to this position or whatnot, but we want to be able to discuss it with you sooner than 6 months later, because 3 months feels like a long time.
So the 10.4.2 though, I mean, one consecutive day, you could have a ton of people out and people are just picking up all kinds of things to help out. 1 day seems really not.
Well, I would say we do have it in some agreements, but we'd welcome any kind of,
I mean, part of that is I understand we want to acknowledge if it's several days, but our language does say we go back to that first day.
after the 5th day.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like they wouldn't be compensated, and I guess I was just trying to understand, again, 1 day, I would guess many people, periodically that happens because we don't have enough staff at times, right? I mean, so, okay.
Well, we may address that problem with other parts of this contract. The intent here is to bring those days down because it does feel like it's a bit much at 5. I guess I put it that way. So if you want to give us a counter that says something different, we'll look at that. All right, going to the next page. So this here, I think we had discussions about this last time. It's about to employ, in this case, I'll read it to you, an employee who volunteers, you say, or involuntary transfers to lower paid position, or who is involuntarily transferred for discipline reasons, will be placed in the appropriate range of position according to the staff. Now, the idea here is that they're making the choice, either through their actions or through bad behavior, to have this happen to them. So it is discipline. If it's happening to them, and if the person's choosing to go that way, then they're making a conscious choice. So we'd understand that they would come down to that level. But the folks that are being involuntary transferred, not due to discipline, like it says in the next section, we really think that they should maintain their wage because they're not choosing this. They didn't do anything wrong. Just circumstances are such that they got moved over here, whether for layoff or for other things, they got bumped around. And then they would wait for the wage and the COLA to catch up to them to where they're at. So they wouldn't be frozen out, but they wouldn't take a reduction in the short run. And hopefully they'd be able to recall to their position and it would be a short-term issue. But that's the intention of that language there.
So just to be clear, when I see frozen, that means there's not even COLA.
Not until the wage exceeds,
Okay,
yeah.
that's the intent. Often that's.
Yes, that's the intent.
Okay.
We've seen it where it's 1 cent in some cases, but they get the 1 cent, but then they go on to the normal schedule with everybody else, right? All right, so if you go down to 10.7, longevity pay. So we changed this to say that the top step of the regular salary schedule of 15. Is this supposed to be highlighted? 15 or eligible step. No, I guess that's right. And then we want to have a 4% longevity every year thereafter. And the idea here is to keep your people that are here. I mean, at this point, they've been here 15, 16 years, to keep them employed and keep that tribal knowledge here with the school. Hopefully help mentor some of the younger people coming up and have them not leave to go elsewhere for another job when they've got all this knowledge and whatnot, and they're at the top of the scale. So obviously you have a fair chunk of people. It would take quite a while for them to get up to that level at this point, but there is some there now, and we want to try to encourage them to stay with the district for their career is the idea.
So they would get 9% if they moved to longevity.
They get 5%, 15, and every year after that, it would be 4%. It would be 4% every year after that.
Plus COLA?
Plus COLA, yeah, do step plus COLA.
So, and I've seen the regular salary schedule several times throughout this, and I think I heard you say that's based on step 15. So are we creating a new salary schedule now going beyond step 15?
I don't know that you need to create a new salary schedule. We usually leave that up to the district, but it's just very clear that annually they get 4%, right? So some places do and some places don't. Lincoln County springs to mind. They usually go out, I think it's 20 steps or something, and then they don't, everybody's up that high knows they get one annually, right? They get an annual step. So they keep track of that pretty well. But that's a logistic thing that we could work through if we get to something here that makes sense. All right, so under coaching, so we added the unified sports coach and assistant position, and stipends will be the same, basically the same as the teachers, subsection C of the agreement from the teachers activity. And the idea there is to bring our folks in line, make sure they get paid the same as classified or central or certified will be paid the same for doing the same work.
It was also to recognize the sport that's recognized by the state OSA.
Yes, yeah, correct. Thank you for that addition. So under A here, classified staff members' current IFT cannot be used as a reason to exclude from eligibility for coaching and advisory type position. Actually, I would like, do you mind speaking on this one?
On which part?
I think I
Adding
actually
just
brought
unified
that.
or?
The A.
It's Marcy.
Yeah.
I actually brought that part.
Thank you.
We had reports from a couple of staff members the last couple of years that they have spoken up to want to take like a green team or an equity coach, and being told that because they're already an 8-hour employee, they're not eligible to do that. And if you have an interest and you want to serve and stuff, they're wanting to remove that barrier so that they can be considered. We wouldn't like to see that be the reason for excluding.
Yeah, I think there's a piece of the story missed there because
And that's
actually there's not enough funding when we have to calculate certain rates. So it was truly based on a funding issue. So I hear what you're saying and I think we have rectified it. So,
Which would be great, and
yeah,
so,
but I don't want that, the only piece of the story out there because there's always more, right?
right, and I do understand that.
And just to make things even more interesting for us, it sounds like this might be an issue taken up by the legislature next time.
Which would be a nightmare.
No comment. I would actually do want Justin to talk about the sport. Justice. I do want you to talk about the sport there.
For adding, I know it's an issue that obviously you said needs to be worked on with the certified as well. And I'm not sure how to go about that. I know that there was a committee that's formed and we can't really just insert things wholesale into their contract. But I do think that, the district has this focus on equity and inclusion and diverse populations. And I think that this would reinforce and encourage the growth of programs like that. It would increase visibility of our special needs if we had, you know, some incentive for people to take up these types of things. You know, other schools have soccer and volleyball and weightlifting and things like that. And other schools now are pursuing this as well. I know Philomath is, they're trying to get something in their coaches' schedule, to have their coaches be paid.
So I know we pay the stipend. I know it's not on the salary schedule, the extra duty salary schedule, but we do pay a stipend for it.
And as far as I understand how the stipends are actually paid out, it's not paid out as a stipend. It's
So when
divided
I
over.
ask for information, no one gives me information as far as understanding the time and so the equivalency of where it's put. So if you have that, it would be great if you could send it to me.
Sure.
Because like when again, like what types of schedules, when you say OSAA, because that's typically what we're basing a lot of our sports on. I'm not getting.
I would call it a winter sport.
But again, if there's a schedule that's set out there, any of that you can send me, that'd be really helpful to have on hand.
Okay.
All right, thank you for adding that. So if you turn back to 10.1 severance benefits, this is the section I meant, it's very similar, so my bad, from earlier. And then down below here, under, I think this was language we had in our MOU that we've moved into this section under the Oregon Family Medical Leave, PLO.
There's 11, so.
I have 11.
Wait, are we ready to move to 11?
So 11 up top and 11.1.1. We just updated 22 to 23 so that maintaining at least that level contribution. Down at 11.2.2, this is about Joint Benefit Committee. And we added a piece that if a consensus cannot be reached, that the final decision shall rest with the association. And 11.2.3, we have added, and that's about people who declined enrollment. That money will go toward reducing out-of-pocket costs or other savings.
Can you share a little bit more behind that?
I mean, I think that was any savings that are possible. I don't know whether it be like prescription savings or just saving people money in general, if
Well,
possible.
Right, I guess what I'm trying to understand is that, because right now you all have the reserves and then so much is allocated based on the decisions made. Is this other savings, like you would be reimbursing people outside of?
No, it was something Hobie had brought up.
I think it was to keep us from being limited if something came up
Right.
that the committee agreed on that we could use as a way to assist around the health insurance for employees. Don't know that we had a specific idea in mind. It was taking away the limitation. Is that
That's right,
correct?
that's correct, yeah. Some groups that have a healthy pools are investigating, trying to figure out how to pay for co-pays, for instance, the swipe card. That's something that we're not ready to do right now, right? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts there. We'd have to look and see what they're doing to see if it would translate over, but it could be an option for the committee to consider as another benefit. That's the idea behind it, is to do
Right, I
like,
mean, there's a lot of logistics. That's what I was trying to
a lot,
understand. That
yeah.
that
That's why it's
leaves it
not
wide
here.
open, yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's open for us
There's
to bring
obviously a lot
ideas.
of taxable benefit laws as well, that there's a lot of things we cannot do. So saying other is really broad.
Well, obviously, we're gonna stay within the law. I mean, that's not the intent. The intent is to give freedom, so when the committee meets annually, they can, if they come across it. What I just said, I'm gonna have to flush out for a while to figure out if they've been able to figure it out, how they get around some of these things you're talking about, or if they don't, right? So we just wanna leave an open door so that they have some flexibility to be able to institute in some of these things as either side brings ideas that are conform to the law, bring to that committee so they don't feel handcuffed. That's the idea. If that, for the recording here, being very clear, that's the idea is, so.
I would also, just want to mention with the Joint Benefits Committee, as the structure's changed and how the district purchases benefits significantly since last time we negotiated this contract, I'm not sure that a lot of this language is applicable anymore. And so
Could you clarify that, Laura?
we no longer are self-funded for dental and vision, which is a lot of where I think this language originated from, about choosing plans. And so as far as choosing plans, I don't believe we've restricted the number of plans you can choose. They're all OEB plans, so those are the options now. And so I'm just wondering about, the addition of if the consensus cannot be reached, the final decision shall rest with the association. And
I would say that's not only about the insurance choices, even though you guys can weigh in both sides, not you guys, we're all together, but all parties can weigh in, but that also has to do with the amount that we choose to put towards the premiums. We've never had a problem with consensus, and the people who've been on the committee, myself, Jennifer, Mary, we've been doing it a long time, and we're all going to be cycling out, and this is getting just some practices in place to make it clear. We've never had a problem with consensus, but if there were to come down to like, and I'm going to make just a wild example, Mary, but like, we want to do 500 and you're saying, no, you should do 7, that we would pay the final per month, we would do the final amount in the determining of it.
I don't think the district has the desire to tell you what to put
I
in
don't
there
think
at
they
all,
do.
because it's your money, it's your reserve money.
Right.
If the reserve has no money in it, therefore then we have to stop doing what you ask us to do, but other than that.
We don't believe you do. Again, it's been a very collaborative and positive since
Okay.
we put this in place. It's done great for our members. It's a good thing. But just recognizing that this particular section didn't have a outcome if there ever was a contention of what the next step would be. And so that was what we were trying to put in place. It's not something that we have a major concern on now.
Yeah, there's been some talk on, I think, both sides of this table of people thinking about their exit strategy. So we want to make sure that we have some of this tribal knowledge we don't lose, we put it into the agreement, right? That's some of this idea too, like Marcy was saying. As far as the language not being applicable, I guess I would have thought I would have seen the proposal for the district if you thought it wasn't applicable, but I think you understand where we're coming from at the very least, if we want to say it a little differently, to make it a little clear. I mean, our intent is not to run afoul of the law. That's not the intent, to make you give choices that aren't available. I mean, that's not the intent of what's happening here. So again, for the recording, I'm just making that really clear. All right, we're moving on.
All right, 11.3, capping cost, under 11.3.1, we struck that and rewritten it to reference the table underneath. So that would be years 24, 25, contribution would be 1475, 25, 26, 15, 25, 26, 27, and 15, 75. And we think that's consistent with other contracts that we've seen. 11.41A, under insurance prorate, we've struck 35 down to 30 hours per week. And under halftime, 11.2.3, that's just continuity again, to reflect 30 hours and 6 hours per day from 7. And 11.4.3, the same thing, just continuity. Then there's a formatting in there, 40-hour work week. And then the table below there is just modified to reflect 6 hours at a full-time employment eligible for 100% coverage. And then as you go down, it just slides the scale down correspondingly, down to 3 to 3.99 hours at 60%. 11.4.4 is lowering part-time from, we've struck 20 and replaced it with 15 hours per week.
So did you all cost this piece out?
And we have not cost this out yet.
And the reason I ask is this is a significant increase proposal on this piece in particular, and so that's why I was curious.
It sort of looked like what it was last time. It didn't seem too totally obscene. Also, we're one of the few districts in the state where it's not recognized as 6 or 6.5 hour employees full time. I mean, a district our size especially, but even smaller districts. I couldn't find any, to tell you the truth, where 7 was the norm. So I'm just trying to have our employees be equal to what it is in the state.
And it's just an opening discussion too, so.
Yeah, well, I know, but I'm just curious. Sometimes we also have to be aware of what we're putting.
You had your numbers from last time, and then we just adjusted.
All right, Madam 12.
Article 12, holidays, we're proposing a new subsection. If an employee is directed or called back to work on a holiday, reference section 6.5, which Erica already went over. We're also proposing to strike 12-month employees and replace it with all classified staff following the guidelines of 12.1.3. We are also in the table suggesting we strike Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve and add Indigenous Peoples' Day, Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, and President's Day. And then striking the language below for the 9 to 11th month employees, because if you follow 12.1.3, it's all going to be covered under the same. That makes sense? What?
I did the same thing earlier.
Sorry.
I did it earlier.
Oh, and then under 12.4, Juneteenth holiday, striking employees who work the full month of June to read employees who work past June 19 shall receive Juneteenth as a paid holiday. And then that would be striking 12.4.2.
Wouldn't it, based on your proposal in 12.2, you would eliminate that whole piece?
Sorry, can you state that again?
Well, the way I read your proposal is 12.2, you're saying all employees will get all of those holidays, which means you no longer would need 12.4.
Anybody who works both the day before or the last workday before and the workday after a holiday, kind of getting away from that holiday.
No, but I think that these they're separate proposals, right? Like Juneteenth exists in the.
Some of it bases on what the accepted.
Right. Right.
Some of it is based on what accepted for 12.2, whether we need 12.2.
You're saying you're agreeing to the part where we.
I'm not saying I'm
darn
agreeing
it.
to anything, I'm just clarifying your own proposal.
Yes, no, and you'd be right, if
It's all-
we're agreeing to all of that,
Right.
but we made all the changes, assuming that you probably wouldn't want to agree to everything. And so we have a way to kind of bounce it around rather than, well, I mean, we deduct certain things, we don't have to rewrite it a second time, right? No. But
So this is
you're right.
if that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially.
All right, Article 13, vacation. So you'll see in 13.2, an accrual, we have kept we've struck the example there at the top of that table, kept the same two columns there, or excuse me, rows, and struck the bottom 2 rows and have replaced it with a chart below. So now it reads yearly vacation earned. We keep 10 days for 0 to 2 years of service, keep 15 days for 3 to 9 years of service. Change it to 10 to 14 years of service, you get 20 days of vacation at an accrual of 2 hours per 26 hours worked, and 15 and over years, 25 days with 2.5 hours accrual. And then in 13.3.5, the district shall provide the employee shall provide the district with a minimum of 3 working days notice instead of 5.
Questions or want us to continue?
So that's
14.
Yep, so under 14.1 bereavement, we just added in the law essentially, because even though we have 5 days per family death, above the act allows up to 10 unpaid days as well. So that's the idea there. The personal leave, we scaled it back much like we did vacation to be 3 working days, except for case emergency, of course. And then we struck 14.2.2 because it feels hard for people to plan their lives if they can't figure, if the district's not able to figure out how to get a sub in time. So we just didn't think that was fair. And then down below that, we struck all this language all the way down until we get to, where do you see it? So stated in our interest, we'd like to work on this. Oh, I see. So I thought we had a proposal.
That's at 14.3 and 4.
Yeah,
We're going to talk about
right,
sort of similar to what you had for those other things at the end.
right.
We have some pieces of proposals that might help us get it through it quicker, but we'd like to do it with a small group.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about, what your concerns are with the current language?
Well, I think this year you had, because you had a holiday, you had only you used 4 days or whatever it was of your leave, wasn't that right? Maybe it was your
But
role.
that's not the piece on this closure piece so much. I'm sorry to disagree, but one of some of the things that we hear from employees is we've always known it's been complicated that the rules for what certified or salaried, classified or hourly, certified, it's if the kids don't 2 hours delayed and they get it, it's a little squishier and we have the pieces. But let's even start with the messages that go out from communications, quote, the certified contract that goes out to all the classified. So they're staying within, 2 hours late, I'll come for 2 hours, which isn't actually what ours says. So there's a lot of people who just aren't clear, aren't sure, aren't of where they are. And as much as possible, we would, within the law, would like to see us aligning the expectations for classified staff coming in on delayed starts for building closure or school closures or district closures to align with the expectations for certified staff, because those usually come around unsafe conditions, and we need classified staff to be as safe as certified and to have them not be as impacted as much as possible. We just really want to have the field be as even as possible and, simplify it on your end, the district's end as well, that when the communications go out, that it's simple and it applies to everyone. Cool.
No, I appreciate that. I thought with us increasing the weather closure days, that helped with that situation.
Doesn't always take away from the feeling that they need to come, or sometimes even, this past ice storm, it was a hard one. It was one of our worst things we've had to work around. But the feelings from staff that saying, I really can't make it safely, and no, you need to, we need you. With a lot of people, they're passionate about their work, they care. And if they're kind of given the feeling that they need to be there, they're coming in unsafely. And there's just got to be some balances. And we'd like to just have the conversation about where we can align to meet all those pieces in the most respectful way that works on both sides.
And the takeaway from the struck section here is that we want to sit down, like Mary said, maybe in a smaller work group and try to come up with some language that works for the district and works for us.
Okay.
And I can provide other CBAs in the area that's maybe that'll be helpful for guiding too.
Okay.
So professional leave, we struck this language here where it says when the district's judgment operations not hampered, just because it's so vague and nebulous, we'd like, if we're going to keep language of some sort in there, we'd really like it to be something that is exactly what we're talking about. If this is a custodial person, would that apply the same as an EA? What are we talking about, right? This is very nebulous language. It's hard to pin down. It could really be anything, right? And so we'd like to figure out something better to put there or just remove it. And we're all have common sense. And obviously, if it's the middle of your day and you don't have a sub, you probably can't do what you're trying to do or whatnot. But we can work through those things on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Days. So you can see what we're doing with the language here. We're trying to bump it up. And this is modeled after, I believe, the Lincoln County contracts. If you want to see another contract where it has this, bump it up to give a little more sick leave. Because we do have people with, we have other issues with some people, but other people are legitimately sick because of Corona and everything floating around out there right now. So we'd like to try to figure out a way to address those folks that do run on leave because they are actually sick.
This feels like it's going in the other direction.
It depends how good our controls are on the other end, right? If we're putting good controls on the other end so they don't use it when they're not supposed to, this, I think, becomes less of an issue.
So am I
Because
gonna see something else coming?
no peeking ahead. Okay, so down here, we're removing the struck out here. So this one here, it's an interesting thing because we have, Foley says that the process for recapturing these wages, in this case, would be through small claims court. We have something different in our contract that's counter to their rules. And so that's why we're striking this. We want to follow the law. We just want to follow the process, be the same for everybody. I can understand why the district might not be inclined to want to do that, but that's our reasoning for putting it in here, just so you know.
So you'd rather us send someone to small claims court?
I would say that's the process that everybody else lives under. So, and that has its different pitfalls, sure, but I mean, we're just trying to come in line with the law is all.
But that is not necessarily what we are saying that we want for our employees, no. I'm sorry, I think that would, okay, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that way, no.
So down below, 14.7.5, we struck the language below. This is one that we talked about last time, but I still don't really have a good answer on. It's if we have somebody who's on terminal leave, why wouldn't they use their sick leave? I still don't understand. I know we talked about it quite a bit last time. I don't know why we would extend that compassion to them. This isn't a person, obviously, that's been burning through their sick days at the beach. So I guess I'm trying to understand. Maybe the district can give us some more clarity on why we need to have that language. Feels like we wouldn't deal with this enough to make it, a huge problem, but down below under 14.7.6, we've just got some formatting issues here. I think we added 15, the number into that piece, and then full off there, which carries over onto the next page. All right, and then we added or other applicable Oregon laws because they keep piling up on us. So we thought we'd maybe put something in there that would kind of get them all in there without having to keep updating this thing forever in that section, which you'll see again repeated down below or other applicable Oregon laws. So under 14.7.7, this may be something you do already. We just want to be really clear about it that if you're off on workman's comp, we want the ability for the person to say, I don't want to backfill with my sick leave. The law does allow for that, but it allows for the choice. That's all it is to clarify that they have the choice. If they want to do it, fine. If they don't, they might want to save it for other incentives, All right, so speaking of other incentives, down below here, the 14.7.9 is something completely new for you guys to see. We do have this in other districts, and again, it's about the sick leave issue that we brought up earlier that we both flagged. And the idea behind the A in that section is that if you have 40 days at your FTE, that's 2 months you have in your sick bank, right? You have to build that. It takes a while to get there, but you build up to that, and then you can cash out days above that into a 403B. The idea behind this is that, sick leave is intended to be for when you're sick, right? So if you actually get that sick where you have a serious medical condition, you have to tap into that 403B, there is exceptions, is my understanding under the law, to, not that I'm an attorney, but to that you can actually still tap that money without those huge penalties if you have a qualifying condition. So it would still be available as it was meant to be in some form, but it would also give incentive for people to build a secondary 403B account by being here, right? Because with 40 days, most people, it's gonna take them 4 years to get there, right? So they're gonna have to start, using their sick leave, when they're sick only and saving that up. That's the intention of A, is just give us a mechanism to be able to reward people for good behavior. And then under B, this is more of a longevity piece. And Silver Falls has this in their contract. How it would work is, you've been here for 10 years or more, when you separate with the employee, probably talking, people that are most likely retiring, they would be cashed out for half the value of their sick leave pay. So that's the idea of those two things. We're hoping that we get kind of 2 bites of the apple here. One, people utilizing sick leave correctly. 2, we have people that want to stick around to be able to use that benefit. That's the idea behind that. And the other thing too is that with OPSERP, people that have been here for a long time, they just lose their hours when they retire. It's not like Pier 1, Pier 2 where they can roll a portion to PERS. They just lose those hours. And so they've been a good employee. They've been here. They've not been abusing their sick leave. And then their reward is to lose those hours, right? So it used to be you could roll them to PERS, you got something for it. But with this plan, it would restore an incentive for them to not burn up sick leave on the back end at a time. So I'm retiring soon, so I might as well use up these days because I don't get them either way, right? So that's the idea here. I don't know if it's the perfect language, but you can find this in multiple contracts. I can provide you with those. So you can look at all the different versions we've done if you'd like. Well, that's what we're trying to do here to attack the sick leave problem and hopefully help longevity as well. Question?
Yeah, well, but this is a longer term, right? I mean, I understand what you're doing. I appreciate the idea behind it. We're having more immediate.
Which is the A part, right?
Well, I
'Cause
mean,
you
you talk
guys-
about all of those people who are not getting paid right now and are constantly in an unpaid status. You're talking minimum 4 years
Yes,
and
They would
breaking
have to start
habits,
being here,
right?
yes.
So I'm curious if there was talk about a little bit more immediate.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, I mean, we can absolutely have the discussion. I think the 40 hours just came out as most people felt like the 2 months with your sick leave, 3 months of PLO, sick bank, your personal leave. If you really got sick, you'd have a good chunk already available to you. I think that's where this thinking came up for this. But we'd be willing to entertain something that had a lesser amount if you're interested in that. It's just, I think
Oh,
that's.
no, I understand the 40 days. I mean,
Yeah.
no, I totally get all of this. But again, those individuals aren't necessarily the ones that we have the concerns about, right?
Well, if I'm one of these people that are using my sick leave in a way that maybe is not appropriate, and I find out about this, in theory, I mean, everything's a theory until it's proven, right? They would start to save, they get to 2 weeks again, they start to save so they could get towards this goal of being able to, to put that money into a alternate savings account, essentially for when they retire. That's the idea behind it. So, people are not easy to figure out. So I would say that I don't know if that fits the problem. I don't think it'll exacerbate it, but until we try some of this stuff, we're kind of hung out on a ledge, so we just don't know for sure. And a number of districts have adopted this as a way to try to deal with this, right? It also, hopefully, for folks that are thinking about it, maybe we educate them some more, it would allow them the ability to think a little further down the road, rather than this year. They could think 4 years from now, this kicks in, or 2 years from now, this kicks in, and I can build this savings, by being here. That's the hope. So if you have a better idea on something to propose with this, we'd be willing to look at it, but I'm just kind of giving you an idea of where we came with this.
Can I clarify on that one, on A, if they've maxed their 403B, we do nothing?
Well, it would depend. If they have their own 403B, it would seem like it would make sense for them to, Silver Falls has a cash out to the paycheck provision. So I guess that could be an option too. But usually, in discussions we've had, most people don't even use a 403B. We found it when we've done these surveys and stuff, so across the state. So that could become an issue. That is a good point. It would be something that I think we could maybe, if we're really worried about people doing that, we could actually add some language in there, maybe in a counter proposal, and how to address that situation. And that might be very prudent. All right, jury duty. I think we were going for consistency here, trying to make it so it's basically half their work, as I think it is for the night folks, for the day folks, just making it all the same, half their work. I think that's intent there. And then I don't know why that's struck out in green, but that,
I can speak to that.
oh, go ahead.
So it's kind of complicated, or it was confusing to have day shift and swing shift in a single paragraph. So the green highlight that struck out has been not changed, but moved to 14.8.3. And so that, we haven't changed that language, it's just been moved to a different section. The only addition is they highlighted their work in
Right.
14.8.3, yeah.
Thank you for the clarification. And then under 14.11, we've added family illness leave. And Marcy, do you want to speak for this?
That was not me.
Oh, that was you.
Yes.
My bad.
So this is something that the Portland Teachers Association added to their most recent contract. During our classified feedback, so many staff reported using up their sick leave because of sick children or being new to the district and like legitimately being sick. We recognize that like illegitimate use of sick leave is a separate problem, but there are a large number of our staff and our employees who legitimately go through their sick leave because of family circumstances. So what Portland teachers did, they added this separate family illness leave category to act as like a buffer zone for those staff. So it's not anything that can be added to sick leave. You can't opt into it. You can't use these hours first and then use your own. This is only if you have gone through your entire accrued sick leave and you need a little extra buffer for legitimate reasons. This is the intention.
Thank you for the explanation. 14.12, so there's ORSs around this too, but this essentially is we have, I mean, snowpack's looking better than it was a week ago, but as we have more and more fires here, we want to have the ability to, access that and let people know they can go out and work on these kind of safety concerns. For, I think we have, if it's more than 5 days. So that's the intent there. My recommendation would be look up the ORS because you'll explain it better than I can. But that's essentially the intention there, is to try to give people incentives to help fight these fires without feeling like they have to choose for their job in this. And then 14.3 is political leave. Now, this is no cost to the district, but we might actually have somebody using this for the first time this year to run, be in state senate. So it would be great for us to have the ear of that person, as they're still connected to both OCA and the district here with this, using this political leave. Because it's taken unpaid, it's not paid at all, there's no benefits involved with it. It's literally paid time off for this specific activity. And it's in a number of contracts. Like I said, we might have our first person using it this year, which is pretty exciting, to have the ear of a state senator that we can both complain to. And they tend to listen to us a little more because they have this provision. So that's the intent there. I don't think it's going to make or break this agreement, but I do see potential down the road for us to be able to have folks that are very plugged into our concerns, using this. So that's the intent of that one.
So how is this different than someone just requesting an unpaid leave for a period of time?
Because if you read the language here, it talks about, some people get appointed for periods of time. Some people actually get elected into roles like a state senator, which should be like 4 years, right? So that's different than the unpaid leave, obviously, in this contract. So it would make it very clear that they also have return rights too, which unpaid leave has some of that, but it kind of has the components missing from the leave pieces. I think, and don't quote me, but I think you have a maximum unpaid leave in your agreement, if I remember right. Or a period of time when you can use it, if you can't use it for the first 2 years or something. I might be misremembering because I do these contracts, at a time, but we want to make it really clear that this is what this leave is intended to be, is this right here. Because we may change those sections too, so why not have one that's specific to the issue? Article 15. I was teasing already.
Okay, in Article 15, we only have changes in section 15.5. In 15.5.2, we have struck 100 hours and changed it to 200 hours. We have also added a new subsection. At the time of resignation or retirement, an employee may choose to donate any remaining sick leave, whether they are a sick leave bank member or not.
Tim, do you have 17?
Yeah. 16, there's no changes.
We left one out for you.
Wow, thanks.
And then with 17.5, change regular to monthly. Set some kind of time frame to actually get together and meet. Define regular, that's all for 17. For Article 18 uniforms, this only applies to a handful of classified employees, but I want you to consider the idea of a uniform stipend. After 2 years of service, when employees are committed to sticking around the district, we ask that they get a lot of the stipend to put towards uniforms rather than just being provided pants and shirts. I've been here 5 years now. I don't need 15 pairs of pants, but a new pair of shoes might be coming in handy when I wear the same shoes for work every day. I know other colleagues do as well. So something around the idea of considering a stipend for uniforms.
What were the amounts based on?
I kind of based off the pant amount, and then it's like three pants or 5 pants, and 3 to 5 shirts.
Okay.
And it was kind of based off of that.
Okay.
I can take it. Probationary period, obviously, we have an MOU in place. Oops, I skipped the top section there. So we're asking to drop the probation from 9 months to 3 working months on the job. And then the probationary period down here, this is what we have in our MOU. This is language that's in 19.2.
Can you clarify the reason behind that? As someone who supervises classified employees, that's a short amount of time to help grow and make sure that they have the opportunities to be successful.
Sure, I would say that you're out of step with most of the chapters around you. Most of them, it's somewhere around 6 months or less, and those are usually calendar days. We want people to make seniority sooner. If Cascade can do it in 60 days, I feel like you guys can, with very little problem, I feel like you guys can do it in 3 working months, those days they work, right? So it really works out to be close to 5 months or something like that. So that's the central reason.
Erica, you are.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
You're
Article 20, evaluation, discipline, and dismissal. In 20.1, evaluation, we have two new subsections. That read, evaluation procedures shall be in accordance with minimum fairness procedures intended to ensure staff and the opportunity to be heard and the opportunity to respond to evaluation reports. Staff has the right to timely notice as to the basis for an evaluation, the results of an evaluation, and the right to file staff objections to the evaluation report. B, if a staff member is notified of the staff member's placement on a program of assistance, the staff member shall be given 24 hours written notice prior to the meeting with clear information about the purpose of the meeting and shall be entitled to representation.
I'm curious where this is coming from. This, in reviewing the
Inspiration for some of this came from the teacher's contract. You're looking at the language there, and again, having more unified expectations and rights. Too frequently classified and certified are talking, and there's misunderstandings and getting information. So whenever we can level that field to have it be the same rights, the same things, it makes it easier. So that's where some of this is. And I know that, and Mary could probably speak to this part better, we do have staff who come up with concerns or feel like they're not getting the notice, and they, go into a meeting and they are surprised by why they're there. So just, some of these is just protections. Mary, anything?
So I guess a couple of things I just want to note is, by law, there's certain things we have to do for licensed staff that we're, whether we like it or not, we're stuck with.
Right.
Individuals know they're on an evaluation year. That's in the system. They have that information. The other thing is, I hear we want to align with teachers, and then there's places we want to be very different. And so I'm trying to understand like where that give and take is, when it works and when it doesn't work for this group.
I can say what's in my mind, and then others can say, I think sometimes the alignment, from my perspective, can almost be a morale issue. There's some things that we recognize are very different. There's going to be things around the closure days that we just can't align. But when we can make things easier for employees, when we can help employees in the day-to-day working see themselves as staff and know that things are on par, that makes the working relationships easier, it makes morale easier. There's always going to be things. We very much are, we are OSCA, they are CEA. We are two different unions, but whenever we can align so that things are easier for all employees to understand, both sides, all three sides, it's going to make it easier. Does anybody else have a different perspective on that?
We're ready to continue?
Yeah.
Okay. Section 20.3.1 is a grammatical change. Sorry, thank you.
It's getting late.
Then a change to that last sentence in that section, probationary employees are covered by Article 19. A new section about complaint procedures. If a complaint is made against an employee to the administration and the administration at any level deems the complaint sufficiently relevant to be discussed with the employee, they shall be notified in advance of the purpose of the discussion and shall have the right to representation present at the discussion. Section A, the discussion must be held within 10 working days from the time the complaint is made to the administration. The complainant and the administrator shall present the employee all available information in writing, including the requested remedy. Section B, employees have the right to all information pertaining to the complaint, including the name of the complainant. Any complaint which administration chooses not to discuss with the employee at the time of occurrence, or which is not discussed within the required time, shall not be considered in the employee's evaluation and shall not be used against the employee in any subsequent action by the district. Section 2.4, striking, and then a new section for bias incident response. All bias incident reports directed towards a staff member require the same process as the complaint and disciplinary procedure outlined in 20.4, even if the intent of the process is non-disciplinary in nature.
I mean, I know where this language came from so many times.
Article 21.
This is pretty clear, I think, too. We agree to follow the law. We don't need the rest of this, except for the lockout procedure.
So, Hobie, I'm really curious because there's times when you want us to follow the law and you want it in the contract, and then there's times like you just say, let's strike it because it's in the law.
Well, I think it depends on what we're trying to do, right? Each section. So to be consistent, that's apparently what we're trying to take up. We're trying to get something better than the law here, and obviously we don't want to follow the law. I mean, that's what we have the right to bargain, but you have some parts of that contract to do that
I just
too.
find it interesting.
Yeah, there's parts of this contract that benefit you that are not in the law, like the bully versus, so just saying, goes both ways. All right, grievances. All right, so grievances, going to page 61, you'll see, we're trying to expand, when you can file grievances from 15 days to 30. And the reason behind this is we want to make sure that we have time to investigate, to make sure that we're not feeling grievance because we're worried about a timeline and thinking we know what's going on. We want to actually find out the details and make sure that it is grievance. And then when we have our first level, meeting with the supervisor or principal, make sure we're just having discussion about the facts and whether we agree or not versus we think this is what this is, and, but we're filing because we want to keep the timeline. I'm more concerned on the front end of getting it right. That's why you don't see a lot of additions to the back end, because if we have it right there, the other steps make sense. But sometimes it takes a while to get these things figured out and make sure we have all the details so that you can actually adequately or investigate our grievance that we bring to you, or potential grievance, hopefully solve them before we have the written grievance. And I would say this is very common in most contracts, it's 30 days. And that's what we're asking for here. I think that's, other than the word grammatical piece in 22.42, I think that's it.
Article 23 is safety.
All right, that, I'm gonna talk to you guys about that one. I'm just gonna practice really quick and not long-winded, but there's a lot of reformatting in this. While some of the stuff's new, some of it's rearranged. I think that as a district, both sides of us together can be pretty proud that we have this in there. But we got it in, we got the safety section in 6 years ago, 3 years ago, we added more. And we're looking to just reformat it, get it more readable, and plus get some more protections and ideas in along the lines. We talked about staff, staff safety is a huge thing that we hear from our staff when we did the poll. I know that everyone's hearing it in their buildings. It's one of the major conversations that's happening. So under 23.1, we are adding the phrase, this includes consistent application of standard procedures and clear communication for district behavior guidelines for students. The district behavior guidelines shall follow district policies. We're adding that in just as part of it. Underneath 23.1.1, we're wanting to add 2 subsections. One says, if the district proposes a change in district policies that affect district behavior guidelines or changes to the district behavior guidelines, the association shall be provided with a copy of the proposed changes and an opportunity to make recommendations regarding such changes prior to the adoption/implementation. We're asking for a voice. B is the district shall notify all staff annually of the district behavior guidelines, including the district's safety protocol, threat assessment process, as well as the communication protocol for incidents involving school and public safety prior to the first day of school. Under 23.1.2, we're wanting to strike the word serious from bodily injury. That's finding that subjective. So bodily injury shall receive information. I don't know if I want to read this whole paragraph, but we're also wanting, kind of need to. Any employee who is required to work in situations that may carry potential for bodily injury shall receive information on their potential work environment and be provided necessary training for such duties and or situations before beginning the work. At any point while performing job duties, if training is deemed insufficient by either the employee or a supervisor with regard to safety or scope, additional training opportunities will be requested. Training shall be scheduled or arranged within 15 working days of the documented request and completed within a reasonable amount of time. Not that that has to be done, but it has to at least show the progress that's being made. Training and any associated costs shall be paid by the district. We want to strike that last sentence that says if changes are made to safety plans, changes will be shared with all affected staff in a timely manner. We're not striking the concept, we're moving it somewhere else. A new subsection 23.1.3, staff will be notified of all safety plans for any students they are working with within 1 workday of the safety plan being formalized. If changes are made to existing safety plans, changes will be shared with all affected staff within 1 workday of the changes being formalized. And then section A under that, when the district has been informed, staff will be notified within 1 workday of any adjudication for violent crimes involving a student they work with. We have a couple of grammatical grieving things there. I'm not going to tell you the numbers because I can't actually see them. But under the second green number, if a bargaining unit member we're wanting to strike the word assaulted and saying is subjected to non-consensual physical contact or threatened in connection with district employment, the bargaining unit member will immediately notify the principal and or their supervisor. They want to strike out some of those next few words. Over here. We want to strike out the rest. It's just they will immediately notify. And again, it's not to say that the part about the break isn't part of it anymore. We're moving as part of the restructuring. So A is anytime a staff member is subjected or an attempt is made to non-consensual physical contact from a student or adult in the workplace, regardless of degree of physical injury, the staff member must file an incident staff injury report. The district shall share complete data with the association of all classified staff member reports on a quarterly basis. The district's incident form staff injury report shall be available online. Paper forms must also be available for staff wanting alternative access. The employees will be offered an additional 15-minute break after each such incident. This additional break is separate from their regularly scheduled breaks. Again, that was in there before, we just moved the spot for formatting to make it easily readable. And D, if a classified staff member is subjected to non-consensual physical contact from a student, if a classified staff member is harmed by a student, or if a trained classified staff member must use physical restraint with the student, a classified staff member shall have a consultation check-in with the administrator prior to returning to work with that student, working with that student again. We've got a couple of brief things about formatting changes. We have a new subsection down there. And I will say this wording, I'm not going to read it. It is kind of modeling, the district behavior committee is in the teacher contract, and we're saying that we would like a voice on the same committee. Moving to the back, we made a new section. Again, it's stuff that's in there, but in the formatting, it's going to be 23.2, dropping the word uncommon and just calling it health and safety situations. There may be, and we want to strike the word uncommon, there may be circumstances where an employee routinely exceeds expected duties outlined by their job description due to ongoing student behavior incidents or related working environments, grammatical, that have not been remedied by other preventative measures. When a safety incident occurs, we're not putting the word recurring, is our request, such as use of bodily fluids, that piece. Hold on, I got myself lost. I apologize. When a safety incident occurs, and then the bullet points, the employee will follow the process, but the next bullet, such employees will receive 1 hour personal leave per eligible incident that reflects a pattern of receiving non-consensual contact, which will be added to the employee's leave account. Patterns shall be established based on the employee receiving repeated non-consensual physical contact. And that's us wanting to clarify the lens that we saw this piece under. And then there's a grammatical change.
Can you explain that piece more?
I think Mary might speak best to this as she's the one that's working with it, but I think there's been, the pattern to us is about the employee. So it's not that the same student hits them every day, it's that the employee is receiving non-consensual physical contact within their job duties on a regular basis, whether it's the same student or multiple students, it's about the employee in this matter, not the student who's doing it. Because we're talking about making things okay for them. It's hard for all staff right now, but it's hard for classified staff. Morale is low. I think it even ties into, a personal opinion, I will state that, in talking with staff, I think it even falls into what we're seeing in the increased sick leave. Staff are getting worn out, they're getting overloaded, and they're feeling sick. Some of it might be stress, different things, but it's part of our increased sick leave and staff that I'm talking to. It's not that they just don't want to go to work. They're so worn down, they're so tired, they're so anxious that it's affecting their health.
Like what other job you go to where you're gonna come in and be hit and spit on a bit, and it's considered, that's what happens during your day. And it's hard to keep employees, and like maybe these incidents don't happen with the same student every day, or maybe happen 2 or 3 times a week, maybe with different students, or then they're moved somewhere else and it continues to happen because that's just how that goes. But it's hard to keep these people, it's hard to explain to them how this is helping them at all, even getting that extra time. And sometimes they have been in the past discouraged, you really need this time, or yes, we do. And I think you almost tell them you do need this time. I think it has to be the opposite really strongly, that they need to take time away, and they do also need to get something for, not that anybody should be paid for getting treated that way, but I mean, I don't know, it's something we need to work on.
And the break piece, I'll add to that. We're hearing from staff, and we always understand there's perspectives of what somebody means to put out. But hearing report backs of phrases like, they didn't hit you that hard, do you really need a break? That isn't for somebody else to determine how it was received by the person. Because in the perfect world, none of us in education signed up to actually go to work expecting to be hit and be like, this much is acceptable and the rest is, it's hard. It's a hard mindset to go.
Well, the hard part is there's a lot of people, they love working with the children so much, and it's hard sometimes for them to even fill these things out or report it, and we have to look out for them as well, so.
We all know that all the staff injuries are not being reported. I mean, we know that for every amount of reports you see, there's somebody more that aren't being done. And staff, I'm not just gonna say classified staff, even though that's who we're speaking for. Classified staff, so I'll speak for them, they're struggling, we're struggling. And I have one quote, I'm hesitant to use it, though the individual who actually gave me full permission, Mary's laughing, she knows what it is. The employee left employment in the last 6 months, and their closing phrase to me when they left, when I said, well, no, they were not from my building, I'm gonna say that. They said, at least at my new job, if somebody shows me their penis, I'm allowed to call the cops. Just even stuff like that, well, it's not a physical thing, it's hard, it's demoralizing, it's not your comfort zone. And all of this stuff, the safety thing, we don't think is perfect, we're hoping that we can have some back and forth. But staff need to know there's something there where they feel like as they're facing it, they have backup, that they're supported, that there's options and a voice. And I've been pretty passionate, we've all been pretty passionate about that for a while, and it's a section that needs to keep developing to protect.
So I have a clarifying question as well on page 65 on your new subsection A.
New subsection A, any staff member subject or attempt is made to non, okay, yeah.
So when you say or an attempt is made, can you give me an example of what you're referring to?
I've had it happen with me. A student goes to swing at you, like full on punch, and you manage to whip back enough to miss it, but their intent was to hurt you. That's a near miss. That's an attempt was made to hurt you.
And then
Just because you have good enough reflexes doesn't
yeah, and
negate
that's
the
what I
action.
just needed to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
And then the next part goes to non-consensual physical contact from a student, in parentheses says, or an adult in the workplace. Where's the or adult? Do we have adults hitting one another?
No, but I think
That's a different issue.
Like, what do you consider an adult? We have 18 to 21-year-olds in our
Okay.
programs, so I think that's what that was coming into, was to
Okay,
kind of clarify that.
that's what I
That a
just needed.
student is a student, no matter what
Okay.
their age.
though I will say that if James smacked me, I would expect myself to do a report.
Well, again, we have a different process. All right, any questions on this section?
And 24, I think.
Last but not least, so last time we met, 24.1, the waiver that was being appealed is why we didn't remove it then. That appeal at the appellate court has been withdrawn, so that is the law of the land. This is language that is not legal, so we need to remove it. And then down below, you have grammatical change in 24.2 in green there. And then below that, the first sentence that's struck is not applicable anymore because we have a different agreement here potentially. The last sentence struck is language that, quite frankly, I don't see in a lot of contracts because we call it gotcha language. It's like, oh, if you forgot to send a notification, even though both sides are gearing up the bargain, if you forget, then you just have to live with your contract for another year. It's not something I see really around anymore because it's been kind of identified as, it really only affects the union because, the district would probably be happy to live with another year under the contract, no raises and stuff. So not saying you guys specific, but just in general. So I think it's time for it to go. It's just not fair. And then below that, we struck the dates because obviously we're gonna have new dates. And they're 24.4. With that, I think we're done, correct? Okay.
That was a lot, thank you.
We'll make sure you had some weekend reading.
Yeah, so our next date is April 2nd. Because obviously we won't be coming back.
You left it quick. You said you kind of like the holidays, right? I thought you kind of.
Yeah, I know. So when we come back, you all want to respond first then to our piece, and then we can work on responding to your piece?
Might be faster.
Yeah,
Or we
I think
can-
so.
Or we can coordinate on which art, like if we have duplicate articles, we may just kind of coordinate and decide who's gonna respond back and then go from there. That might work too. Very good.
All right, did you need to reschedule the May 2nd meeting because you have a conflict?
Yeah, but I think when we talk, we're gonna get a little closer to that date, correct? Yeah. So thank you for checking. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we done? Okay.
Yeah.